Strength begins in the mind, not in circumstances. Most people believe that if their situation improves, they will automatically become stronger. They think strength will arrive when the job is secure, when the money is sufficient, when relationships are stable, when health is perfect, or when life finally becomes fair. But life does not work that way. Situations change like seasons. One day the sun is bright, the next day there is a storm. If your strength depends on external conditions, then your peace will always be temporary. True strength is not created by what happens around you. It is created by how you think, interpret, and respond to what happens. Two people can face the same problem and react completely differently. One person collapses, complains, and loses hope. The other becomes calm, reflective, and focused. The difference is not the problem. The difference is the mind. The mind is like a lens. If the lens is clear, even a difficult situation looks manageable. If the lens is distorted, even a small issue looks like a disaster. That is why the real battlefield is not outside, it is inside. When you train your mind, circumstances lose their power to control you. The mind has a natural tendency to exaggerate pain. A single negative comment can overpower 10 compliments. One failure can make us forget years of success. This is not weakness. This is how the mind is wired. But strength comes when we become aware of this tendency and choose not to blindly follow every thought. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves action. A strong person is not someone who never feels fear, anger, or sadness. A strong person is someone who feels all of it and still chooses wisdom over impulse. When situations become difficult, the mind starts creating stories. Why is this happening to me? I am not good enough. This will never get better. These thoughts feel real, but they are often assumptions, not facts. Strength begins when you learn to pause and question your own thoughts. Is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is it true, or is it just my fear speaking? The moment you create distance between yourself and your thoughts, you stop being their victim and start becoming their master. Many people wait for motivation to feel strong. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Strength is built through discipline of the mind. It is built when you choose calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, and patience over panic. It is built when you remind yourself that this moment, however painful, is not permanent. The mind needs reassurance, just like a child. When you talk to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, resilience begins to grow. Circumstances are often neutral. It is our interpretation that gives them meaning. Rain can be seen as an inconvenience or a blessing. Silence can feel lonely or peaceful. Failure can feel like an end or a lesson. A strong mind does not deny reality, but it chooses the most empowering interpretation of reality. It does not ask, "Why me?" It asks, "What can this teach me?" That single shift in thinking transforms suffering into growth. Strength in the mind also means accepting what you cannot control. So much mental suffering comes from fighting reality. We resist change, we resist loss, we resist uncertainty. But life does not ask for our permission to change. When the mind learns acceptance, it stops wasting energy on resistance and starts using energy for response. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means understanding the situation clearly so you can respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. A calm mind is not a weak mind. In fact, calmness requires immense strength. Anyone can shout when angry, complain when disappointed, or blame when hurt. It takes strength to remain composed, to listen, to reflect, and to respond thoughtfully. Calmness is not the absence of emotion, it is the presence of control. And control begins in the mind. Over time, when you consistently train your mind to stay balanced, circumstances stop shaking you so easily. Criticism does not destroy your confidence. Failure does not define your identity. Success does not inflate your ego. You remain grounded. You understand that life is a mix of ups and downs, and your job is not to control the waves, but to learn how to surf. When strength begins in the mind, you stop outsourcing your happiness. You no longer say, I will be peaceful when everything is perfect. You say, I choose peace even when everything is uncertain. This does not make life problem-free, but it makes you problem-proof. And that is real strength, the kind that stays with you in every situation because it comes from within, not from the world outside. You can't control events, but you can control your response. This single truth, when deeply understood, can completely change the way you experience life. Most of our frustration does not come from what happens to us, but from our insistence that life should happen according to our expectations. We want people to behave a certain way, situations to unfold smoothly, and outcomes to be predictable. But life is not designed to follow our script. Unexpected delays, unfair criticism, sudden losses, and unplanned changes are not exceptions. They are part of the design. Strength is not about stopping these events from happening. It is about deciding how you will show up when they do. Think about how much energy we waste trying to control what is outside our reach. We replay conversations in our mind, wishing we had said something different. We worry about the future, imagining problems that may never come. We hold on to anger because someone did not meet our expectations. None of this changes the event itself. The past remains unchanged, the future remains uncertain, and other people remain who they are. But this constant mental struggle slowly drains our peace. The moment you realize that you don't need to control everything to be okay, a heavy burden begins to lift. Response is where your real power lies. An event by itself is just an event. It has no meaning until you react to it. Someone may criticize you. That is the event. Whether it becomes motivation, self-doubt, anger, or growth depends entirely on your response. The same situation that breaks one person can build another. Not because one is lucky and the other is not, but because one reacts unconsciously while the other responds consciously. Most people react. Reaction is automatic. It is driven by emotion, habit, and ego. When someone hurts us, we immediately hurt back. When something goes wrong, we panic. When plans fail, we complain. Reaction feels natural, but it often creates more damage than the original problem. A strong person learns the art of pausing. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a small gap. In that gap lies choice, and in that choice lies freedom. Controlling your response does not mean suppressing emotions. It means acknowledging them without letting them take control. You can feel angry without becoming aggressive. You can feel disappointed without becoming hopeless. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. Emotions are like waves. If you fight them, they overpower you. If you observe them calmly, they pass. Strength is not about being emotionless. It is about being emotionally intelligent. Life will test you again and again. It will put you in situations where reacting feels justified. But every time you choose a thoughtful response over an impulsive reaction, you reclaim your power. You stop giving external events the authority to decide your inner state. This is especially important in moments of conflict. You cannot control someone else's words, tone, or behavior, but you can control whether you allow those words to disturb your peace or define your self-worth. When you focus on your response, you move from being a victim to being a participant in your own life. Victimhood says, "This happened to me, so I have no choice." Responsibility says, "This happened, now I choose how I respond." Responsibility is not blame, it is empowerment. It means you accept that while life may not be fair, you still have agency over your attitude, actions, and values. Controlling your response also builds long-term resilience. Situations may change, but your inner stability grows. You stop overreacting to minor inconveniences. You stop letting temporary setbacks ruin your entire day. You understand that not every battle needs to be fought, and not every comment needs a reply. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is walking away with dignity. Over time, this practice reshapes your character. People may still try to provoke you, but they will notice that you are not easily shaken. Challenges may still come, but they will not break your confidence. You begin to trust yourself, not because life is predictable, but because you know that whatever happens, you can handle your response. When you truly accept that you cannot control events, you stop resisting reality. Resistance creates suffering. Acceptance creates clarity. From clarity comes wise action. You stop asking life to change and start changing the way you relate to life. And that is where real strength lies, not in controlling the world, but in mastering your response to it. Silence is strength, not weakness, even though the world often teaches us the opposite. We are told that if we do not speak, we are losing. If we do not defend ourselves immediately, we appear powerless. If we do not react, people will think we are afraid. But true strength does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly, observing, understanding, and choosing peace over unnecessary noise. Silence is not the absence of courage, it is the presence of control. In emotional moments, words can become weapons. When anger rises, the tongue moves faster than wisdom. A single sentence spoken in rage can destroy relationships that took years to build. Silence in such moments is not suppression, it is protection. It protects your values, your dignity, and your future self from regret. A strong person understands that not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every emotion needs to be expressed immediately. Silence gives you space. Space to breathe, to reflect, to understand what is really happening beneath the surface. Many conflicts are not about the words spoken, but about unspoken emotions, fear, insecurity, ego, or pain. When you respond too quickly, you respond to the surface. When you choose silence, even for a moment, you give yourself the opportunity to respond to the truth instead of the trigger. There is a deep power in not reacting to provocation. When someone tries to pull you into drama, they are often seeking a reaction, not a resolution. Your silence denies them that control. It sends a message without aggression. I will not let you decide my emotional state. This kind of silence is not passive, it is deliberate. It requires strength because it goes against the instinct to defend and explain. Silence also helps you listen, and listening is a rare form of strength. Most people listen only to reply, not to understand. When you remain silent, you truly hear what the other person is saying, and sometimes more importantly, what they are not saying. You begin to notice tone, intention, and emotion. This awareness allows you to respond wisely rather than emotionally. In moments of criticism, silence can be a powerful teacher. When someone criticizes you, there are three possibilities. The criticism is true, partially true, or completely false. Immediate defense prevents growth. Silence gives you the chance to reflect. If the criticism is true, silence allows humility and self-improvement. If it is false, silence protects you from unnecessary arguments. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Silence strengthens your inner stability. When you are comfortable with silence, you are no longer desperate for validation. You do not need to prove yourself to everyone. You trust your character more than others' opinions. This confidence does not come from speaking louder. It comes from knowing who you are. A strong person does not rush to be understood by everyone. They focus on being aligned with their values. In difficult situations, silence prevents escalation. Arguments often grow not because of the problem itself, but because of how people speak to each other. Tone sharpens, egos clash, and the original issue gets buried under hurtful words. Silence can break this cycle. It cools emotions. It shifts the energy of the moment. It allows reason to return. Silence also teaches patience. Patience is strength in disguise. When you wait before responding, you allow time to bring clarity. Many problems resolve themselves without confrontation. Many misunderstandings fade when given space. Silence trusts the process of time instead of forcing immediate outcomes. Choosing silence does not mean avoiding communication forever. It means choosing the right moment to speak. When you speak after silence, your words carry weight. They are measured, intentional, and impactful. People listen because they know you do not speak unnecessarily. Silence refines your voice. Over time, practicing silence transforms your relationship with yourself. You become less reactive, more thoughtful, and more peaceful. You stop exhausting yourself with constant explanations and justifications. You understand that your worth is not dependent on constant expression. Some of the strongest people in history were not the loudest in the room, they were the calmest. In a world that rewards noise, choosing silence is an act of strength. It is the strength to pause, to reflect, to protect your inner peace. Silence is not empty. It is full of awareness, self-respect, and quiet power. Emotional discipline is real power because the greatest battles you will ever fight are not with people or situations, but with your own emotions. Anyone can feel emotions that requires no effort, but managing them with awareness, balance, and wisdom, that is where true strength lies. When emotions control you, even a small problem feels unbearable. When you learn to discipline your emotions, even a big challenge becomes manageable. Emotions are powerful forces. They influence decisions, relationships, confidence, and self-worth. Anger can make you say things you never meant. Fear can stop you from trying. Jealousy can poison happiness. Ego can destroy peace. Emotional discipline does not mean eliminating these emotions. It means not allowing them to sit in the driver's seat of your life. You can feel anger without acting in anger. You can feel fear without letting it define your choices. That ability is real power. Most regret in life comes from emotionally driven decisions. Words spoken in anger, messages sent in frustration, promises made in excitement, or reactions fueled by ego often create consequences that last far longer than the emotion itself. Emotions are temporary, but their impact can be permanent. Emotional discipline gives you the ability to pause and ask, if I act on this feeling right now, will I be proud of it later? That pause can save years of regret. The mind often justifies emotional reactions. It says, I was angry, so it's okay. I was hurt, so I had to react. They deserved it. But discipline means taking responsibility even when emotions feel valid. Just because an emotion is understandable does not mean every reaction is wise. Strength is choosing what is right over what feels satisfying in the moment. Emotional discipline also protects your peace. When you allow others to trigger your emotions easily, you hand them control over your inner world. A comment ruins your mood. An opinion shakes your confidence. A small inconvenience steals your joy. A disciplined emotional state creates boundaries. It allows you to feel, but not to be ruled. You stop giving external situations the power to decide how you feel inside. This discipline is especially important in relationships. Relationships don't break because of lack of love. They break because of unmanaged emotions. Anger left unchecked turns into resentment. Insecurity turns into control. Fear turns into distance. Emotional discipline helps you communicate instead of accuse, understand instead of assume, and respond instead of react. It keeps conversations from becoming battles and disagreements from becoming wars. Emotional discipline is built through awareness. You begin by noticing your emotional patterns. What triggers you? What situations make you defensive, impatient, or anxious? When you observe your emotions without judgment, you create space between the emotion and your identity. You realize, I am feeling angry instead of I am anger. That small shift gives you control. You are no longer the emotion. You are the observer of the emotion. With practice, you learn that emotions rise and fall like waves. If you don't fight them and don't act impulsively, they lose intensity. What feels overwhelming now often feels insignificant after some time. Discipline teaches you to wait. It teaches you that not every feeling needs immediate expression. Sometimes the strongest response is to let the emotions settle before deciding what to do. Emotional discipline also strengthens self-respect. When you act in alignment with your values rather than your moods, you begin to trust yourself. You know that no matter what you feel, you will not betray your principles. This inner trust builds confidence. You stop fearing situations because you know you can handle your emotions even when things go wrong. Life will always test your emotional discipline. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Efforts will go unnoticed. If your emotions control you, every test becomes suffering. If you control your emotions, every test becomes training. You grow stronger not because life gets easier, but because you get wiser. Emotional discipline does not make you cold or detached. It makes you grounded. You still feel deeply, but you respond consciously. You laugh without losing control, love without losing yourself, and face challenges without losing balance. That balance is rare and that rarity is what makes it powerful. In the end, emotional discipline is not about perfection, it is about progress. You will still slip sometimes, you will still react occasionally, but each time you become aware, you reclaim your power, and slowly, steadily, you become someone who is not ruled by emotions, but guided by wisdom. That is real strength. Pain is temporary, lessons are permanent, but in the middle of pain, this truth is very hard to believe. When you are hurting, the mind convinces you that this feeling will last forever. A heartbreak feels endless, a failure feels final, and a loss feels unbearable. Pain narrows your vision. It makes the present moment feel heavier than it really is. But pain, by its very nature, is transient. It comes, it teaches, and it passes. What stays with you is what you learn from it. Every human being experiences pain. No one escapes it. Different lives, different stories, but the same reality. Pain does not discriminate. It visits everyone at some point. The difference between people who grow and people who break is not the amount of pain they experience, but what they do with it. Pain can either make you bitter or make you wiser. It can close your heart or deepen your understanding. The choice is not always easy, but it is always there. Pain often arrives uninvited and without explanation. You may do everything right and still suffer. You may give your best and still fail. This is where pain feels unfair. But pain is not punishment, it is instruction. Life does not teach its deepest lessons through comfort. Comfort keeps you the same. Pain forces you to look inward, to question, to reflect, and to change. It breaks illusions, especially the illusion that life should always be smooth. In moments of pain, you meet yourself honestly. Masks fall away, ego weakens. You see what truly matters and what does not. Things you once chased suddenly lose importance. Things you ignored suddenly become precious. Pain clarifies priorities. It shows you who stands with you, what you value, and what you can survive. Many people discover their strength only after they are forced to use it. Pain also teaches humility. When life humbles you, it softens you. You become more compassionate toward others because you know what suffering feels like. You stop judging so quickly. You listen more deeply. Pain connects you to humanity in a way success never can. Success separates. Pain unites. It reminds you that everyone is fighting something you cannot see. The problem is not pain itself, but resistance to pain. When you fight pain, deny it, or pretend it doesn't exist, it lingers longer. When you allow yourself to feel it, understand it, and learn from it, it slowly loosens its grip. Pain demands attention, not avoidance. It asks you to slow down and listen. Often, it is pointing toward a change that needs to be made or a truth that needs to be accepted. Lessons learned from pain shape your character. They teach resilience. Once you survive something you thought you couldn't, fear loses its power over you. You realize that you are stronger than your worst moments. The next challenge does not intimidate you the same way because you carry the memory of survival. That memory becomes confidence, not arrogance but quiet strength. Pain also teaches boundaries. After being hurt, you learn where to say no, where to protect your energy, and where to walk away. You stop overgiving. You stop tolerating disrespect. These lessons are not taught in comfort. They are carved through experience. Pain educates you about self-respect in ways advice never can. With time, pain transforms into perspective. What once felt like a disaster becomes a turning point. What once felt like an ending becomes the beginning of something wiser. You look back and realize that certain doors had to close for you to grow. Certain people had to leave for you to find yourself. At the time, it felt cruel. In hindsight, it feels necessary. The danger is when pain is carried without learning. Unprocessed pain turns into resentment, anger, and fear, but pain that is reflected upon becomes wisdom. That is why two people can go through similar pain and emerge completely different. One carries scars, the other carries lessons. The event may be the same, but the inner response makes all the difference. Pain does not stay forever, but its lessons do if you allow them to. They guide your future decisions. They strengthen your intuition. They make you more aware, more grounded, and more real. Life may still hurt you again, but not in the same way, because you are no longer the same person. In the end, pain is a teacher that does not repeat lessons unnecessarily. Once you learn what it came to teach, it leaves. What remains is growth. And that growth becomes the quiet strength that helps you face whatever comes next, knowing that pain may return, but you will always take something valuable from it. Detach from outcomes, stay committed to effort. This idea sounds simple, but living it requires deep inner strength. Most stress, anxiety, and disappointment in life do not come from the work we do, but from the expectations we attach to the results. We put in effort and then we tie our piece to what happens next. If the outcome matches our hope, we feel happy. If it doesn't, we feel frustrated, defeated, or even worthless. When happiness depends entirely on outcomes, life becomes an emotional roller coaster. Outcomes are influenced by many factors beyond your control. Timing, other people's decisions, circumstances, luck, and even randomness all play a role. You may prepare well and still not get the result you want. You may give your best and still fall short. This does not mean your effort was wasted. Effort is always within your control. Outcome is not. When you understand this difference clearly, you stop punishing yourself for things that were never fully in your hands. Detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean you stop caring or stop aiming high. It means you care deeply about your actions, but you release the need to control how the world responds to them. You show up fully, give your best, and then let go. This mindset brings freedom. You work with sincerity, not desperation. You perform with focus, not fear. When you are attached to outcomes, every task becomes heavy. Fear of failure creeps in. Comparison begins. You start measuring your worth by results. This attachment drains joy from the process. Instead of learning and growing, you are constantly worried about whether you will succeed. Detachment removes this pressure. It allows you to enjoy the journey, to learn from the effort itself, and to grow regardless of the result. Staying committed to effort builds character. Effort is where discipline lives. It is where habits are formed and skills are sharpened. Even when outcomes are unfavorable, effort strengthens you. It improves your abilities, deepens your understanding, and prepares you for future opportunities. No sincere effort is ever truly lost. It may not give you immediate rewards, but it always leaves you better than before. Life often teaches this lesson repeatedly. There are times when people do everything right and still don't get the desired outcome. At first, this feels unfair, but over time, You realize that life is not just rewarding results, it is shaping you. The focus on effort keeps you moving forward even when progress feels invisible. It helps you trust the process instead of doubting yourself. Detachment also protects you from arrogance in success. When outcomes are favorable, it is easy to become attached to praise and recognition. You start defining yourself by success. This makes you fragile because the moment success fades, your confidence collapses. When you are detached from outcomes, success becomes a moment of gratitude, not an identity. You remain grounded, knowing that results come and go, but effort remains a constant expression of who you are. This approach brings consistency. When you are attached to outcomes, motivation fluctuates. If things go well, you are enthusiastic. If they don't, you feel discouraged. Detachment creates steady effort. You show up on good days and bad days. You work not because of guaranteed rewards, but because effort itself becomes meaningful. This consistency is what leads to long-term excellence. Detachment from outcomes also reduces fear of failure. Failure loses its power when it is no longer a verdict on your worth. It becomes feedback. It shows you what worked, what didn't, and where you can improve. When you stay committed to effort, failure becomes part of the process, not the end of the road. You stop avoiding challenges and start embracing growth. Over time, this mindset creates inner peace. You stop negotiating your self-worth with every result. You know that you are doing your best, and that is enough. You trust that outcomes will unfold in their own time. Sometimes they will surprise you in ways you could not have planned. Sometimes they will redirect you towards something better. Detaching from outcomes does not make you passive, it makes you powerful. You act with clarity instead of anxiety. You move forward without carrying the weight of expectation. You become resilient, adaptable, and calm. Life still gives results, but they no longer control your emotions. In the end, effort is your offering to life. Outcomes are life's response. When you focus on what you can control and release what you cannot, you experience freedom. You grow not just in achievement, but in wisdom. And that balance is what allows you to stay strong in any situation. People's opinions don't define your worth, yet for many of us, they quietly control how we feel about ourselves. A compliment can lift our mood instantly, and a criticism can stay in our mind for days. We often say we don't care what people think, but deep inside, approval feels comforting and disapproval feels painful. This is natural because human beings are social by nature. But when your sense of worth depends on external opinions, you hand over your power to the most unstable thing in the world, other people's perceptions. Opinions are shaped by personal experiences, beliefs, fears, and insecurities. They say more about the person holding them than about the person receiving them. Someone who sees the world through negativity will find flaws everywhere. Someone who is insecure will project their doubts onto others. Someone who does not understand your journey will judge your choices. None of this changes your true value. Yet when we internalize opinions, we begin to see ourselves through someone else's limited lens. The problem begins when we confuse feedback with identity. Feedback can be useful. It can help you grow and improve. But identity is deeper than any single comment or judgment. When you allow opinions to define you, you reduce your entire existence to a moment, a mistake. or someone else's misunderstanding. A strong person learns to separate constructive feedback from careless judgment and wisdom from noise. Seeking approval is exhausting. You constantly adjust yourself to fit expectations. You hesitate to speak your truth. You avoid taking risks because you fear being judged. Slowly, you lose connection with who you really are. Living for approval means living a life designed by others. Strength comes when you realize that no matter what you do, someone will always have an opinion. If approval is impossible to guarantee, why make it the foundation of your self-worth? Many people struggle with comparison. They measure their success, appearance, and progress against others. Comparison is fueled by opinions, both spoken and imagined. Social expectations, labels, and stereotypes silently influence how we see ourselves. But comparison ignores context. It ignores different starting points, struggles, and paths. Your journey is unique, and your worth cannot be measured using someone else's scale. When you stop letting opinions define you, you gain freedom. Freedom to grow at your own pace. Freedom to make mistakes without self-hatred. Freedom to evolve without needing permission. This does not mean becoming arrogant or dismissive of others. It means being grounded in self-awareness. You listen, reflect, and decide what aligns with your values. You do not blindly accept or reject opinions. You choose consciously. Criticism often hurts because it touches insecurity. When you know who you are, criticism loses its sting. It may still hurt, but it does not shake your foundation. A strong sense of self acts like an anchor. Waves may crash, but you remain steady. This stability does not come from praise, it comes from self-acceptance. Praise, too, can be dangerous when you depend on it. When praise defines you, you start performing for applause. You become afraid of losing the image people admire. You stop being authentic and start being pleasing. Detaching your worth from praise allows you to enjoy appreciation without becoming dependent on it. You remain humble in success and resilient in criticism. Understanding your worth is an internal process. It is built through integrity, effort, and alignment with your values. When you live honestly and work sincerely, you develop self-respect. That self-respect becomes your reference point, not external validation. You no longer need everyone to understand or agree with you. You need to be at peace with yourself. People will misunderstand you. They will judge your decisions without knowing your reasons. They will label you based on their limited interaction with you. This is unavoidable. What matters is whether you allow these judgments to define you or simply pass through you. Strength is allowing opinions to exist without letting them occupy your mind. Over time, when you stop reacting to opinions, people's power over you fades. You become calmer, more confident, and more authentic. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You trust your path even when it looks different from others. This quiet confidence is powerful because it is not dependent on approval. In the end, your worth is not something others can give or take away. It is not hidden in opinions, titles, or achievements. It exists simply because you exist. When you truly understand this, you walk through life with dignity, clarity, and inner strength, unaffected by the changing voices around you.